All right, we need to have a little bit of a chat about UFC 315 because I've seen mixed opinions about the card. I've seen people saying it's trash, they're looking at the two women's fights on the main card and they're thinking it's going to stink up the card and whatever. I've actually seen some people with a level head and saying it's okay. I've got mixed opinions. I'll go into it a little bit, but I want to start off by saying the two women's fights on the main card is not the worst thing in the world. And I understand some people really don't like women's MMA. I get it. But in terms of women's MMA, if you're going to put any fights on a main card of a pay-per-view, like these are probably the two of the best fights you're going to get to go on a pay-per-view main card. Manon Fiorot is a fresh matchup for Valentina Shevchenko. We've just seen her fight Grasso 3 times. We don't want to see that anymore. She won the last one by unanimous decision, so it's time for a fresh contender. At the end of the day, the women's divisions do have to keep going, and it's a fresh matchup for Valentina, so I don't really mind it. And yeah, of course, there's a possibility that Bilal Muhammad could stink up the main event by just crotch sniffing the whole time. But you know what? I don't think it's going to be that. I think we're going to see a bit of something different. I think Jack Della Maddalena is going to put up a good fight. I think he's going to... You know what? I'm going to pick him to win. I'm actually going to pick him to win by KO right here. So there you go. That's not going to be a boring fight. Jack Della Maddalena is going to knock out Bilal Muhammad. So you have that. And then looking a bit further down the main card, Jose Aldo versus Zahabi. Now, I think Jose Aldo should have retired after the Bautista fight, to be honest. Like, the same thing that happened to him against Merab, which made people hate Merab, happened to him against Bautista, and it was just not fun to watch. And now whether that happens again, like this, it won't happen again in this fight. Like, Zahabi's not that sort of fighter. But I just think that should have said to Jose Aldo, like, okay, going to call it a day here. And I think he should have retired. But I still haven't decided on my pick for that fight. I've not really looked into it. But I suppose Jose Aldo's on there. That'll bring a few people in, maybe. Right, so we'll have a little bit of a scroll down to the prelims. And one thing you immediately notice is that there's a lot of Canadian fighters on there. And that, believe it or not, is because the card is in Canada. So they had to fill the card with a few Canadians to get the appeal from the people that are going to actually be going and watching it in person so they can get behind the Canadian fighters. But you get that with wherever you go for a pay-per-view. UFC 304, when it was in Manchester, like, they had to stack that with British people, British talent. And I'd argue British talent is better than Canadian talent and there's more exciting British fighters, but they sort of had to do that. And you know what? There's some fights that could potentially be pretty good on here. I'm not going to lie. You've got Modestas Bukauskas versus Ion Cutelaba opening the prelims, if that's the correct bout order. And that will be a good fight. I've met Modestas. I met him outside the hotel before he fought at UFC 304. Really great guy. Good fighter as well. Glad to see him back in the UFC. And he's got a dangerous matchup. That could be a fun fight. You've also got, if we go a bit further up, went a bit too far up there. There we go. We've got Mike Malott now. Mike Malott looks like he was a decent prospect. He looked like he was going to be pretty good in the UFC. He looked like he was going to get ranked, but then he got finished late by Neil Magny, and it sort of ruined things for him. But then below him, you've got Jessica Andrade. There could be some good fights on here. Even Marc-Andre Barrios versus Bruno Silva. Like, you can't count out these matchups to just be boring because, there's some exciting fighters on here who've got exciting fights in them. So I was just looking a bit more into the main event, and I didn't realise that Bilal Muhammad is nearly 37 years old. He is knocking on a little bit. Like, as soon as he loses the belt, I don't think he's getting it back, because this guy, like, while he still looks in good shape, he still looks pretty fresh in his fights. Like, he's getting old, and you can't beat age, so that's very interesting going into this. Well, I know I just said like 2 minutes ago that I'm picking Jack by KO, but that's literally just because I want the fight to be exciting, and I'm going to manifest that it will be an exciting fight, and maybe Bilal Muhammad will have some moments of success on the feet. I know he's not the most powerful guy, sorry. I know he's not the most powerful guy, but, the threat of the takedown can maybe cause some issues for Jack, but that probably will be my pick in the end. And I'm not a massive Bilal hater. I've said some things about him, but, I truly think that this is Jack Della Maddalena's time. And also on Jack, people have been questioning the pay-per-view and how well it'll do with sales. This is going to gain a big Australian audience. Like, the whole of Australia is behind Jack Della Maddalena. I doubt you'll find an Australian who doesn't like him. So there's a big Australian appeal because they want another one of their guys to be champ. So yeah, overall, I feel like if you know the fighters that are on the card and you know how some of their previous fights have gone and that they've been in bangers before, you could see this as actually quite a decent card. But as I said, I think the main thing for people is the two women's fights that are on there. I don't think people like the look of that, which is, each their own, but I don't really mind. But yeah, overall, I don't think it's an awful card. There's been better pay-per-views this year, but I think a lot of the fights will surprise people.